Sanji has never once disrespected an ingredient, the rice included, and he's right, because what makes Japanese rice taste the way it does isn't technique. It isn't the pot, it's something most people eating it every day have never heard of. Rice shaped Japan, not metaphorically, literally. It was currency, it paid samurai, it built castles, and for over 1,000 years, the variety you grew and how you cooked it determined your status, your wealth, and your survival. Japan didn't just eat rice differently, they engineered it. And the science behind why it tastes the way it does is something most people eating it every day have never heard. And it has nothing to do with the pot you use or how you wash it. It starts with the variety. It runs through the starch chemistry and ends with a government-controlled grading system that most people outside Japan have never heard of. This is the chemistry of Japanese rice. Hit that like, grab a bite, and let's get into it. Hitokuchi dake. Most of the rice eaten in Japan is a subspecies called Japonica, short-grained, round, and cultivated specifically for sticky, glossy texture. The variety you've almost certainly tried but never heard the name is called Koshihikari. Developed in Fukui Prefecture in 1956 and still the most widely grown and consumed rice in Japan. It didn't become dominant by accident. Japan's Agricultural Research Institution spent decades selectively breeding for a specific combination of traits: texture, aroma, sweetness, and moisture retention, which don't exist in the long-grain indica varieties that dominate global rice production. When you eat Thai jasmine rice or Indian basmati, you're eating indica, fluffy, separate grains, neutral flavor. Good for what it is, but it's a completely different crop from what's in a Japanese rice bowl. And treating them as interchangeable is a culinary criminal offense. Here's where it gets more interesting. Rice starch is made up of two molecules, amylose and amylopectin. The ratio between them determines almost everything about how rice behaves when cooked. Amylose is a straight-chain molecule. High amylose rice cooks dry and separate. The grains don't stick. Amylopectin is a branched molecule. It gelatinizes more completely when heated, which means the grains absorb water thoroughly, swell, and become sticky and cohesive. Japanese Japonica rice, and Koshihikari specifically, has a lower amylose content than most global varieties, roughly 17 to 20% compared with 25 to 30% in long-grain indica. That ratio is why Japanese rice clumps slightly, holds its shape when formed into onigiri, and has the characteristic glossy surface when freshly cooked. It's not technique, it's because of the molecular structure. And when that rice cools, in a bento box or pressed into sushi, the amylopectin molecules retrograde, meaning they partially recrystallize. The texture firms slightly but stays tender. This is why cold Japanese rice is still pleasant to eat. Cold, long-grain rice turns hard and chalky. Different starch, different outcomes. This is where most people outside Japan make their first mistake. In Japanese, cooking rice is called suihan. The first character means to cook with steam and heat. The second means cooked rice or meal, gohan. Not raw grain, not boiled grain, cooked rice as a finished, specific thing. The language signals that this is a transformation, not just a preparation. The device that does it, the rice cooker, is a suihanki. Add a third kanji, meaning vessel or tool, and you have literally cooked rice vessel or rice cooking vessel. Japan has engineered entire categories of appliances around doing this one thing correctly. That's not coincidence. The method itself is the absorption method. Using a precisely measured water ratio, typically 1 part rice to 1.1, 1.2 parts water. Bring it to a boil, then drop to low heat and let the rice absorb every drop. No excess water, no draining, everything goes into the grain. This is not arbitrary. It's the only method that allows complete gelatinization of Japonica's amylopectin structure. Boil in excess water and drain, the Western pasta method, and you wash away the surface starch from the grain. You physically remove the texture you're trying to achieve. Some Japanese home cooks add ice cubes to the rice cooker before closing the lid. It might sound strange, but rice starch begins gelatinizing around 60 to 70 degrees. And starting cold gives every grain more time to hydrate evenly before that threshold hits. It's especially important in the summer when Japanese tap water runs slightly warmer. The result is fluffier, more separate grains with a cleaner sweetness. And Japanese people love the hot springs, so they know a lot about soaking in water. The absorption method exists because the chemistry of this specific rice demands it. After the heat goes off, the rice rests, lid on, for 10 minutes. The residual steam redistributes moisture evenly through every grain. Lift the lid early and you get an uneven result. The resting period isn't patience, it's the final step in the gelatinization process. Actually, there's one more step that can't be skipped. The moment the resting period ends, open the lid and loosen the rice with a rice paddle. Fold it gently from the bottom, don't stir. Freshly cooked rice is still releasing steam, and if it sits packed together, the steam condenses back onto the surface of the grains, compressing them into a dense block. Breaking it apart immediately separates each grain before retrogradation, the recrystallization of starch on cooling, locks them together. It takes 10 seconds, and the difference is not subtle. Notably, Japan's water is soft, low in magnesium and calcium content, which affects how starch gelatinizes during cooling. Hard water, which has a high mineral content, interferes with the swelling of amylopectin, producing a slightly firmer, less cohesive result. Soft water allows complete gelatinization. This is one of the reasons Japanese rice cooked in Japan tastes different from the same variety cooked elsewhere. The water chemistry is part of the equation. It's also part of why sake, miso, and Japanese green tea all taste the way they do. The water isn't neutral, it's an ingredient. Moreover, Japan grades its rice through a system overseen by the Food and Agriculture Ministry. The top grade, called Tokute Meisansho, certifies the variety, origin, and crop year. Rice sold in Japan is labeled with all three. You know exactly what you're buying, where it was grown, and when it was harvested. New rice, shinmai, written with the characters for new and rice, harvested in autumn, has a higher moisture content and a sweeter, more fragrant flavor. Serious Japanese home cooks adjust their water ratio when shinmai hits the shelves in October. The difference is noticeable. The system exists because in Japan, rice is not a commodity. It's closer to wine. The texture, variety, and vintage all matter. Short grain Japonica, low amylose content, soft water, absorption cooking, and a grading system that treats rice like a precision product. That's the chemistry behind why Japanese rice tastes the way it does, and why no amount of technique will fully close the gap if you're starting with the wrong variety and resources. What you eat every single day shapes your body over decades. Japan has the highest concentration of centurions on Earth, people living past 100 in unusually good health. The diet isn't the whole story, but it's not nothing either. The rice is where it starts. If you're cooking Japanese rice at home and want to know what you might be doing differently, drop a question in the comments. Next episode, we're going into sake, which takes the same rice, runs it through koji, and then does something that should be chemically impossible. 2 fermentations happening simultaneously in the same vessel. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.